Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SDGC. I'm Derek. You will notice there is no John tonight. That is just fine. We are here to have a lovely evening. I'm here with my good buddies Jeff, Justin, and CJ, and Finn should be here shortly. He might have died in between his car and the computer. We can't be too certain about that. But lovely night. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Very PlayStation-centric episode tonight, I think, in terms of topics. But before...
nobody's really doing anything, and even those topics aren't, like, wild.
No, it'll be fun stuff, right? This is going to be a nice, light, like, drama-free show, right? Like, we didn't find out that somebody in Ubisoft, like, killed somebody, right? Like, this isn't one of those episodes.
Hey, the night's young.
Don't put it out there. Don't put it out there.
John's gonna join the chat in like 30 minutes with a breaking news update with the most like
Reggie
disheartening shit.
Reggie Fils-Aimé drinks orphan blood.
Well, he did say he wants to sell his Animal Crossing island on the blockchain. That did just drop a little while ago.
You know what? I'll allow it. He's retired. He's retired.
It turns out that Amy Hennig is actually the reincarnation of Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Which, I have a secret conspiracy theory that Elizabeth Bathory was framed, but this is not the podcast for that.
No, actually, I think we're gonna go deep into that theory tonight. That's
hold on, Derek. Put a pin
yeah.
down.
Okay. So the long and the short of it, I'm glad that all of you showed up for this video game podcast tonight. You're gonna get a history lesson about the Blood Countess and how I believe all of the charges against her are manufactured. So Countess Elizabeth Bathory owned and had the rights to a tremendous amount of land that was incredibly sought after by the state. And she wielded an incredible amount of political power due to her wealth and land that I think she inherited. I don't remember if like husband died or parents died or something like that. Anyway, and women in Hungary or wherever the fuck it was aren't allowed to have like money and land and political power. Do you really think that one woman killed like 300 women and bathed in their blood and drank their blood? Or do you think that was invented by a bunch of dudes looking for a reason to put her in prison and take her land and wealth for the state?
I think you're trying to discredit like a girl boss moment.
Yeah, well, look, don't get me wrong. One way or another, she was one of history's great girl bosses.
They're not.
I will go on record that the Blood Countess Elizabeth Bathory did have girl boss power.
Like that. That's like she's just focused on the grind, and I don't like that you're trying to deplatform. trying to cancel an entrepreneur.
Finn, you've come at a wonderful time.
Yo, Finn, hold up.
I don't know what the context is, but I don't care.
I'm digging the hair and beard combo. You know what? It's been a while since I've seen you. You look good, man.
Yeah, that's an excellent beard, my friend.
Like, straight up.
Appreciate you.
All right.
You know me.
Yeah.
I hope to age as gracefully as all of you because you're all older than me.
I'm
That's
actually
fair.
the youngest member of SDGC.
Oh, really?
Crazy.
In terms of emotional
He's like a
maturity.
he's like a hard 15. It's crazy.
As far as emotional maturity goes, I am the youngest.
He's like Robin. We're fucking bullying him into being a member of fucking SDGC. All grizzled on the outside.
So we've got a few things to talk about tonight. We want to talk about PlayStation setting up a new PC strategy team as well as a new preservation team is the phrase they're using for it. We want to talk a little bit about some of the great shit that was at PAX East 2022. Really, Finn specifically is going to talk about it because Finn was the only one of us that braved the frozen wilds of Boston to get us this news.
Yes.
But
It wasn't frozen at all. It turns out April's much nicer.
Probably, yeah. It should be April every year, assuming that PAX
I hope it
becomes
is.
the way it used to be. But before all of that, let's talk a little bit about what everybody's been playing. Jeff, why don't we start with you, bud?
Yeah, I've been cooling down on Gran Turismo a little bit. I've basically done most of the stuff short of like they've got like the car dealerships which rotate new inventory in every day, so I kind of log in every morning, check to see if there's anything I want to buy. Because like I'm 3 trophies away from the platinum. So the 3 I need, one of them is pretty easy. I just have to grind out 50 online races. The other 2, one of them I have to gold every license test, which I think I only have 3 left, but the last one is impossible and I've conceded I'll never do it. And then the other one is to like buy 3 legendary cars. And they have like specific criteria. It says like cars that were destined to win the 24-hour Le Mans. But there's like 30 legendary cars and you have no way of knowing which one. So actually it took 2.5 months for anyone to get the platinum because nobody knew which specific 3 cars you had to purchase. And you also have to wait for them to rotate in. But now I know which ones they are, and I highly doubt I'm going to grind out the amount of money required to buy them all. So I'll settle for 87% trophies. I won't get that platinum. That's okay. And then I also just finished replaying Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS5 finally this morning. I played half of it last year when the PS5 version came out, so I that game is still fucking incredible.
Does the PS5 version feel like a tremendous step up from the PS4 version?
It does. I was really skeptical. I mean, I wasn't even going to buy.
It has textures. That's an upgrade.
It has doors.
Yeah. I wasn't even going to buy the PS4 version. Like, I was going to hold off for the PC one, and then the PS5 version was announced. I was like, should I get on PS5 or PC? I'm really glad in hindsight I didn't get it on PC because that one has some problems. But yeah, like it's, the textures still just aren't that good in the game. Like they're better than the PS4 one. They're definitely not the best even the good textures, they're not the best ones you're going to find. But I think something about just the way the game's presented, it's kind of like what FF14 has, where from far away, everything looks really good. And it's like they don't do a proper LED swap when you get closer. So as soon as it zooms in on like a table, it's like it's still using the same textures that it would have been from 20 feet away. So just things don't hold up on close scrutiny. So you get, depending on the camera angle, like some of the flowers look really bad. But the game runs flawlessly, and I'm like picky as fuck with this stuff. Like I have no complaints. The game looks amazing. All the haptic stuff, like I don't know how deep they went with it, but like I don't know, the way the controller gives you feedback and stuff is really, really good and works well with the combat. And it was just a blast to replay it. And I haven't played the DLC yet, so I just purchased that, and I'll probably be starting that next week. So I'm excited to finally play through that. But yeah, man, they're saying they're gonna give us something on part 2 this year. I know it's still a ways away, but I can't wait to just get any kind of taste on that because I'm dying over here.
We'll see.
Yeah.
It's Final Fantasy, so who fucking knows?
I'm gonna fucking laugh if we see more about 7 part 2 and we don't see anything from 16 for like another 2 years.
I think John's
gonna have a meltdown.
Yeah,
I mean he's in a permanent meltdown, but
yeah,
more
I would
so.
too.
Yeah,
but yeah, it would be the funniest possible turn of events.
I have faith.
Finn, what you been playing, bud? It's been a hot minute since you've been able to make it to the live show. I'm glad you're here tonight. You've been busy.
You. I have been busy. You are correct. Unfortunately, the busyness is not extended to video games. Let's see. I platinumed Horizon Forbidden West. I am almost done 100%ing Kirby and the Forgotten City. Started up a new run through of Triangle Strategy. I mean, y'all, that's basically it. I've been having trip after trip after trip. I mean, honestly, I played a whole bunch of PAX, but we'll wait till that section. PAX.
You get to really shine when we talk about PAX.
For the most part, I haven't. I need to get back into the groove. You know, I've been so busy with work that I just haven't had time to sit down and actually play, and it sucks.
You're still in that new dad phase, really. Like, that's not over.
No, you're not wrong. It's but Kirby, and the game I'm gonna play after Kirby. Oh, CJ will appreciate this. We've been burning through It Takes Two. Such a good game.
Nice.
Like anyone that's played It Takes Two understands why it won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. It's a phenomenal experience. And then beyond that, let me pull up my list of things that's on the docket. The next game I have, I keep flirting with the idea that I'll actually try Elden Ring, but I won't. I know I won't.
You'd need 100 hours to put aside, and I don't think you have that in your life right now.
Just talk to your daughter and tell her, hey, look, listen.
Yeah, but then you have to remember, like, I don't. That's not my jam. So I'm
That
sitting there
too.
like, I feel like I should care. You know how like when there's this huge zeitgeist game that comes out and that's all anyone's playing or talking about, and I'm sitting there like, should I? And then I know I won't play it. I mean, I own it. It's sitting there. It's mocking me. I'm just not gonna play it.
It's like the FOMO is fighting against the like contrarian part of you that
Yes.
wants to not play something just because it's the most popular thing right now.
See, but I don't hate things because they're popular.
No, I don't hate it, but I just kind of
Yeah.
like, I don't want to get into this right now because it's all anyone's doing.
I think the best part of my gaming life was when I reached that point where I stopped caring about like playing the hot new thing. It was
Yes.
like it's so
I will
freeing
say
when
the
you just
next
play what
game-
you want to play.
The next game I've got on my docket is Chinatown Detective Agency on PC.
Ooh.
I got it on Xbox PC Game Pass. Very excited to give that a shot.
Nice. Bustin', what you been playing this last week or so?
Oh, so yeah, it's been a few weeks since I've been on.
I think it has, yeah, because you've been busy with work shit too.
Yeah. So I finished Elden Ring, which that's only the second time I've actually finished.
You beat Millennia?
Yes, I did.
Wow, holy shit. All right.
Okay. All right. Funny story about how I beat Millennia. So
I had to summon a naked dude named Jar Jar Binks, so whatever you say is not going to be embarrassing, I
well,
promise.
I tried summoning John, and it went
First
better with my
mistake?
mimic than it did with
Yeah,
John.
I was going to say first mistake.
However, he's not here. He's not here while I put him on blast. I do have to give him credit though, because he just dropped the sword that Millennia drops, which works perfectly for my build, and he could not use. So, and I had the materials to fully upgrade it.
I didn't know you could do that you could just drop items for each other like that.
I don't think you're supposed to be able to with certain ones, but he did it for the weapon you get from Millennia. So, he had to go, and then literally the first attempt after I got that thing upgraded, I beat her without barely taking any damage because the secondary, like the weapon ability or whatever that has is super
Because
overpowered.
it's her super overpowered
Yeah.
move.
Yeah. And so me and my mimic just spammed it on her and was like, how do you like it? How do you like it? But yes, yeah, so I beat Elden Ring. I really, really liked it. I still have my complaints. I don't think it hits as high for me as it has for a lot of other people.
I feel like that
but-
back third kind of falls apart. a
Yeah,
bit.
see, I think it goes back to kind of what I said earlier. Like, I liked the more open world stuff than I did the more linear stuff. And like the last part of the game is a lot of the more linear, frustrating areas and stuff like that. But I mean, the game I think is great. I think it could have just been a little bit tighter.
You almost feel like the Halig tree and some parts of the underground and like Moog's area could have been saved for like a DLC expansion and tightened up more. Like, and the game would have been a tighter experience for it. But I still loved it. Like,
So, and then I also decided to try to go back to Demon Souls, which has
bad
been-
choice.
Yeah,
I don't like. I will say I don't like Demon Souls. It's
I'm
good.
not liking it very much either. I've mostly just been farming for healing items, and that's about it. So I played a little bit of that. I did also play through Ghostwire Tokyo,
Ooh.
which was okay. I was actually very disappointed coming from Tango. I love the Two Evil Within games. And the DLC for the first game, so I had really high expectations going in. That game feels like it was rebooted multiple times throughout development, and what we got was made in a very short amount of time. Like, it's not bad, it just feels like there's not much to it. And like, my favorite parts were the side missions where like you're doing like basically ghost spirit detective stuff.
Yeah.
And those feel completely separate from like the main storyline, which isn't very eventful or interesting. That game has way too many open world collectibles. Guess how many like of the souls that you collect there are in that game?
Is it triple digit?
You wish it was triple digit.
4 digits?
240,030.
No.
That was my next guess.
That's
that.
exactly the kind of shit that makes me not play video games.
Yeah, like I mean, you get them in groups of like 100, 300, stuff like
then
that. But it's
drop
still
a couple of significant digits, y'all. You did. We don't need to do the Disgaea number inflation.
I think it's supposed to be like representative of like the population of like that section of Shibuya. But yeah, it was a nightmare. I got like half of them, but I'm not spending any more time with it. I don't know. The game it's cool, but it never came together for me to really click. So that was kind of a bummer. Like, again, it's not bad. It has a lot of style. It just doesn't feel like they were able to coalesce some of the good ideas into like a really cohesive, fun, interesting
it went through pretty
package.
troubled development, switching hands a couple of times, right?
It seems like it. It feels like they had to get something out. Like it feels like that this isn't their best work, unfortunately. And then today, I grabbed the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Yo, I just started playing that like a couple hours ago.
Yeah, I did too.
Today, I think.
It came out the 27th, yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Came out yesterday. Oh, it's amazing. I'm cracking up. I found the new content section, and I was in tears laughing so hard. It's great. I'm really enjoying it.
So much.
That level, that like kind of, there's still the corporate sarcasm stuff, but there's a lot more stuff directly about the gaming industry and games and stuff. And it's a blast. I'm really happy it finally came to consoles, because it was a game that I had gotten when I got my last computer, when Valve was like, we're going to put some games on Mac and they're going to be great. And it ran like shit. So I played like 5 minutes of it. And so I've been waiting for a console port ever since 2013 for that game.
Did you follow the adventure line, Justin?
I did.
What a wonderful, weird little experience.
Yeah, but I highly recommend it. I mean, it's basically, for those that don't know, it's basically like walking simulator style game, but like there's a narrator that responds to what you do, and like you and him have kind of an antagonistic relationship, and
it's incredibly funny, and it's surprising what things you can do or actively don't do that cause the narrator to react. And
there's so much like ancillary dialogue and stuff for that. Oh, and the trophies and stuff, read their descriptions and try to follow them, because there's some really good gags in there. So I'm really enjoying that. I'm gonna try to play through some more of the endings and stuff later tonight.
CJ, my man, what you been playing?
I'm playing this game called Depression, meaning I haven't been playing games. I've been playing one game because I got it for review, and it's like the only thing that I've been playing in between like everything. I will say, I haven't been on this podcast in like at least a month or more. And what I've been doing in that time is I've been going to the movies a lot. Sign up for AMC A-List.
Pandemic. Yeah, why don't you talk about something you love that's not a video game, since I think that's where this is headed.
Well, I'll mention the video game I was playing after. I've been going to the movie. It's been great. I've been going to the movies at least like once a week. It's been nice. So I saw beginning of April I went to go see Sonic 2 early. I got like a screening pass for it. Called out of work. Loved it. I had a good time. Took my cousin to go see it. It was funny that we're the two oldest people there with no kids watching a Sonic film like early. I saw Ambulance the week after. Still my favorite film of 2022 so far. I think it's like the singular greatest. Like, it's one of those things where like the mid-budget hard R action film can still exist. It's still viable, and it can still look and feel as great as this. It's like Michael Bay made a $40 million action film that looks better than most $200 million films. Like, he crashed real cars. He was able to use drones in some interesting ways, and I was completely like blown away by it. I think it's like it's a shame that there's a lot of these auteurs who won't get the funding that they can. They like someone like Shyamalan or Michael Bay won't get like their triple digit millions or whatever of like to pay for like these movies.
What would Michael Bay do with $200 million? I just can't even think of it.
No, he would have.
I don't know.
I would no.
I mean, there's a bunch of Transformers movies that can answer your question.
Here's the problem.
What would he do not shackled by a pre-existing IP? I guess I should say.
I truly think he could make he would make his opus. Ambulance is his opus. It went from it's like Ambulance it condenses everything that makes Bay great, but it also feels like a tribute to a director like Tony Scott. And the whole time watching, it's like, oh, this is what movies have been missing for the last 10 years or however long it's been since Tony Scott died. And then, immediately after I went and watched Man on Fire and Unstoppable, and like, they truly do not make these kinds of films anymore. And I think Ambulance is like this like perfect encapsulation of like everything I love, especially about like auteur-driven action films. It's a hard R mid-budget action film that released on like the premium formats. And I was able to watch it before a fucking stupid ass Harry Potter movie took over, and I was so sad.
It didn't take over very much, did it?
It didn't take over. My boy, Justin sent me this really great Letterboxd review that was like, it was a negative review of Everything Everywhere All at Once. It was like, didn't watch this, too busy having sex at the ambulance premiere, and I'm like, there we go. And then the week after, I didn't see anything. Then after that, this past weekend I saw I double feature within the same weekend. I saw The Northman at the big Dolby screen. Completely like it's just one of those things where I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. It's a disgusting, pulpy, brutal, like this visceral action film that is exactly what it was advertised. It dumps a lot of the fake Lynchian stuff that something like The Lighthouse did, because as much as I like The Lighthouse, that's one of those films that certain people watch, you can tell, all right, you've never seen anything past a certain, like your threshold for weird is very like limited, because it's, if you thought that's like the weirdest thing you've ever seen, no. But the Northman did what I wanted. It's basically a throwback to stuff like Conan the Barbarian, or what's the one with Antonio Banderas I was talking about? 13th Warrior, or Valhalla Rising, where it's just ugly, brutal, bone crunching, all this stuff. And I was able to watch on this big screen with the sound. I was completely like in love with it, to the point where I was at a family gathering immediately after, and my cousin, who was supposed to come with me and see it, I just kept telling him, and during like the quiet, like, there's no conversation going on, I'm scrolling on my phone, I'm like, oh shit, there's a scene in The Northman I'm still thinking of. There's a sequence I'm still thinking about. Like it's just one of those things that I'm still thinking about. I might go rewatch it on Sunday before it leaves Dolby, because fucking Doctor Strange is going to take over every screen. And then on Sunday, I took Christine to go see Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I absolutely adored, because it's one of those things where I'm a big fan of movies about movies or art in general, where they understand what the struggle is. So something like Almost Famous, or Blinded by the Light, or Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, where it's like, it's about a character who loves something and they can't explain it. So in this case, it's about someone like Nicolas Cage, who just loves acting. He loves the profession. He loves film. And it runs within some weird ways. It kind of lost me in during like there's like the plot thread I didn't like too much. I really wish it was just like a hangout film. But there's some moments in there where I'm like fucking vigorously mansplaining to Christine. So that's a reference to a film, to Mandy. The shirt he's wearing is a reference to David Lynch's what's the movie called? And I was just talking
The Mulholland Drive.
Not Mulholland Drive. There's a Nicolas Cage movie he did. Oh my god. There's a movie that Nick Cage did with David Lynch in 1990, and he was wearing the shirt, and I was just talking about it. With some,
when Aragorn kicks the
Wild at Heart
helmet,
is what Google.
Wild at Heart, yes,
Wild at Heart.
So he was wearing a shirt that said Wild at Heart, and I'm like, that's a reference to that, or the two guns from Face Off. And it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, so this movie understands like what makes an actor like great. I always thought Nicolas Cage was like unfairly maligned as like a joke, but no, he's truly, I think, one of, not my generation.
Have you seen Pig yet?
I haven't seen Pig. It's on my list.
You need to see Pig.
I gotta see Pig.
You both need to see Pig.
But because I watched Mandy recently, and I'm like, this is
not even remotely like that.
No, that's why. But I studied up right before I went to go see Ambulance. The first movie I watched was The Rock. I'm like, that's two birds with one stone. Good Michael Bay, good Nicolas Cage. Loved it. I'm like, yes, Cage does like make some incredibly bizarre choices in that film that I love. And then Mandy, it's showing you, okay, this isn't a film where Nick Cage does the whole Nick Cage thing. He does it for one instance, but in a moment of like pure agonizing weakness, he does the whole I'm gonna go full Cage. And I absolutely adored it. And something clicked when watching Mandy, and it's just like he is truly like I said, not my generation, but like one of the greatest actors to have ever like walked the earth. He's just working all the time. No harm in that. So that's been it. Follow me on Letterboxd, I guess. Anyway, the game I've been playing, the one video game I've been playing for 2 weeks for review, and I finished my review. I've been playing Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
Yeah.
And let me tell you guys something, man. Fuck out of here, Elden Ring. Fuck out of here, any other game release, because I haven't been following game stuff. This game is my fucking game of the year. You put it's not only a great Lego game, it's not only probably the greatest Star Wars game I've played in Lord knows how long. It is the thing that has gotten me back into Star Wars. The a thing that I've had to wrestle with for the last 3 years. When Disney Plus came out, everyone else was watching The Mandalorian. Can you all guess what I was watching instead? Right? Watching like hundreds and hundreds of Simpsons episodes instead, because that's where my fucking priorities lie. I'm not watching this new Star Wars show. I'm watching the fucking Simpsons. I went to go see Rise of Skywalker in theaters, fell asleep halfway through, even in the 4D seats that were like moving around. And I've ignored it. I've completely ignored the series. I never finished Jedi Fallen Order. I never watched any of the other shows. I watched one episode of Book of Boba Fett and I like fell asleep. This is the thing that made me remember, oh yeah, I was a young kid once whose dad took him to a fucking Best Buy the night Revenge of the Sith came on DVD. I was watching one of the display TVs, and when we went home, he surprised me with the 2-disc version, the full screen version. Like, what is it, the back when DVDs were separated between widescreen and full screen.
Yeah.
We got this sick ass poster too, and it took me back to like, yeah, I remember why I like this series so much. Just today, I was watching some like fucking fluffy documentary on Disney Plus about the making of the original Star Wars trilogy. In my most depressed and like bored state, I have been doing nothing but watching prequel trilogy behind the scenes stuff. Watching George Lucas try his hardest to sell these movies is like the pinnacle of filmmaking. And I love it. I can thank like a fucking video game for that. So yeah, I've been having fun with it. Go play it. Go play it.
Just like jumping in just to the movie thing. So I also signed back up for AMC A-List, and like I actually got emotional when I did, because so I haven't really talked about this on the show, but I was having a lot of like throughout the pandemic, I was having a lot of issues with just focusing on movies and TV shows and stuff. So games are like the only thing I could focus on. And so it was almost like I had like a 2-year gap where I wasn't able to enjoy any of that stuff. And I thankfully have a work schedule, and the way theaters are around here, like I can see what like the seating arrangement is and stuff ahead of time. So I've been able to like go at times when there's nobody else in the theater safely to the movies again. And it's like, it feels like I got something back that I lost, and it's been really, really great. I didn't get a chance to see Ambulance or Massive Talent yet. I might see that one actually tomorrow. But I did see Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I straight up cannot remember the last time I loved something as much as that movie. If you haven't gotten a chance to see it, please go see it and try to support that movie, because it is just one of the most delightful, immaculately made movies I've ever seen.
So I guess I'll finish up real quick. I haven't done a whole lot different. I think I mentioned last episode that I was replaying Tales of Vesperia and having a pretty good time with it. I need to take my time on most JRPGs, so what I have done in the meantime is I picked up and played and rolled credits on Resident Evil Village again. This is the first time I've revisited it since it launched, and I think it's still my favorite Resident Evil game. Which is a wild fucking thing to say, but I can say after revisiting it, it's not just recency bias. It's everything I love about Resident Evil 7, about the Resident Evil 2 remake, and about Resident Evil 4 all wrapped in one package. It's not just because of the vampire Dommy Mommy, which, do not get me wrong, is a part of it, but it's got such a wonderful variety of aesthetic and pacing, and the combat and exploration is super tight, and all of the villains are so kind of interesting and varied and captivating whenever they're on screen. And I think it's also the first Resident Evil game to make me give a shit about Chris Redfield as a character, because Chris is so generic, and he's just big. He's big McLarge huge in every game. And Village, I think, does a better job of actually portraying kind of his bitterness, but also like the small hidden depths of him fucking up and knowing that he's fucked up, and being kind of bitter about that. But then also, you know, Ethan main character being like, you know, I'm gonna kill main bad guy, and you see that kind of like little very subtle smirk in Chris's face as he's like, he's in over his head, but God, I love his gumption. And you know, it made me love our giant gay brick wall of a Resident Evil protagonist for the first time. But yeah, I've been playing Resident Evil Village. It's good. I guess I'm playing fucking Donkey Kong 64 for a little bit while I wait for a review code.
Bro, listen, that game is wild because they turned my boy Funky into a warhead. I love it. They turned the chillest dude.
They turned him
world
into an InfoWars listener.
Yes. If one of them had to. One of them had to. And I'm not, you know, Cranky wouldn't, like Lanky wouldn't. No, it's Funky.
Diddy's too young. It had to be Funky, right?
No, but Funky.
It's that hippie to alt-right pipeline, right? Like.
No, well, because, you know, it's like he's the typical white surfer dude, of course.
Right,
like
he's, of course, you know.
He'll disagree about
He was like, bro, I was like a social libertarian, and then I started listening to, like...
Hey, wait, you guys heard this, dude? They're taking our bananas.
So, but I'm waiting on a review code for a game I don't think I can mention yet, and until we get that, until I can start on it, I don't want to get too into anything. So I'm like, Donkey Kong 64 is a game that I can fuck around in for now and not feel bad about giving up on in 2 days, right? So that's what I've been playing.
You're in deep now. You got to go 110%.
We've gone too far. Got to go all the way to 102%, right?
Like
complete. So that brings us back to Finn again. Finn, you were the only member of the SDGC team brave enough to brave PAX East, and you made it out unscathed. Why don't you tell us about the best stuff you saw there? I know you handed out a couple of Saki awards while you were there.
You know it. It's not a PAX unless I'm giving out some socks. I never stop loving the description. Oh, also Jeff saying unscathed, but they see a sling on my arm. That is look. All I have to say is don't talk back to Derek, okay? He seems gentle and kind, but
yeah. I know I'm tiny, but
they say fuck around and find out. I found out. No, I fractured my elbow. It's not fun. I don't recommend it, especially if you're left-handed. And then it's your left hand. What am I talking about? Oh yeah, PAX. So I'm gonna pull up my notes. The thing you need to know about PAX is this year, this was definitely the PAX is back, but not fully year. Like it was small. It was like all the big dogs were gone. Like all of the PAX staples. PlayStation was gone. Xbox was gone. Nintendo was gone. Square
I saw a great
Enix
photo of like the empty space where the mixer stage used to be, and now there's just nothing, and nothing took its place. Like
food trucks. They brought food trucks inside to take up that space.
That's cool. Okay, that's actually pretty cool.
It actually
I like
looks
food.
nicely.
Probably less airports going off.
Square Enix was gone. Bandai Namco is gone. Other like just staples like Fangamer, the people that are there to sell you stuff, they were not there. Twitch was not there. Facebook Gaming was not there. What were some of them with Annapurna? Like these booths that you always see there, just not there this time. So and then I thought, well, you know what? Maybe that's actually might be good, because PAX for me has always been less about the AAA and more about the indie games. So maybe the indie games will have the highlight. But then the indie mega booth was also like, nah. So it was a very small, like you could have literally gone for one day and hit up everything you wanted to hit up. Like it is what it is. I mean, I also did our normal SDGC thing, and I volunteered with Take This, and I helped run their Hope booth. So that was a lot of fun. And
that's the one thing I felt guilty about not going is we've so traditionally provided several bodies to help run the Take This Hope booth.
No, that was great. I actually got to work next to friend of the show, Sarah.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
So anyway,
that working the Hope booth has honestly been a highlight every year
I
I've
love
done
the
it.
Hope booth.
It's so fulfilling.
Hope booth and AFK room, they do good work.
Yeah, I've made good use of the AFK room too.
So, however, there was still several just gems that I stumbled upon. Now, game of the show, I think, was a unanimous choice by almost everyone at PAX, and it was a lot easier to choose this year because smaller offerings.
Right.
But
much heavier bias towards the indie side of things, which
every single person I talked to, and if you're in the chat and you know someone that went, or you are someone that went, feel free to correct me. But I'm pretty sure TMNT Shredder's Revenge was far and away the star of the show. And I'm just gonna gush a little bit because that game is perfection. It is everything you want in a beat 'em up brawler. It is the spiritual sequel to Turtles in Time that we never got. It is a love letter to not only that game, but also the entire cartoon from that era. They just announced at PAX that the voice actors from this show, the original voice actors, are coming back to voice the game.
I didn't know that. That rules.
And April O'Neil and Splinter as new playable characters. April is the best. That is going to be my main. The animations in that game are so good. The quality of life stuff they added. So it's not just like if you play Turtles in Time, you're gonna feel right at home. But you know this is the same team that made Scott Pilgrim, and it's from the same publisher that also gave us Streets of Rage 4. Different teams, but it's the same like crew.
Oh, and they did like Mercenary Kings. Yeah.
Yeah, and Panzer Paladin. So they're like really good at pixel art stuff, and they're beat 'em up thing. And here's the thing that I loved: unprompted, they were talking about their accessibility and how there's multiple difficulty options so that people that aren't like great at beat 'em ups can still enjoy the game. And I thought that was really neat. My ears always perk up for stuff like that. But like all the characters feel very distinct and very unique, which I love in a brawler, especially with the turtles. Oh man,
Isn't it great we're getting 2 Turtles games this year?
It really is.
I started reading the comics this year for the first time, and I'm like, oh, everything's like going full
so
circle.
good. What am I talking about? Hold on. Where did
Games
my
of PAX.
There we go. I popped out my chat somehow. I don't know how I did that. Whatever. So Shredder's Revenge is phenomenal. The demo is the first 2 stages. Boss of stage 1 is Bebop. Second is Rocksteady. And I mean, if you play Turtles in Time, like some of the moments will just feel super familiar to you. Like if you fall down a manhole, you'll get that animation you expect. You can do the thing where you throw enemies into the screen. Everyone has a taunt button now, and one of my favorite changes they've ever made is one thing that I've always just never truly loved about beat 'em ups, and it's a staple, right? Like tell me if I'm wrong, but whenever you use a super move, it takes some of your health.
Yeah.
So that was always
classic.
the counterbalance. Like you don't want to spam your super move because then you'll be down to no health. This game does it differently. Your super's on a meter.
Okay.
And you get meter by comboing and beating up enemies. So it encourages you to use it. There is no benefit for holding on to it. But in previous beat 'em up games, you never really wanted to use it until like a boss fight because then you'd be sacrificing your health. So that's one change.
Surrounded by
liked.
like 8 dudes and you needed everybody off you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as a whole, Shredder's Revenge, game of the show by far. It comes out this summer. It's going to be so damn good. I'm excited. One of my other there's four other games I want to talk about. Those five made up my top five of the show. The next one is for fans of card-based RPGs, like if you like Slay the Spire, or if you enjoyed Darkest Dungeon. There's a new game by the creators of Foregone called Power Chord. It is a music-based. They called it Slay the Spire and Brutal Legend had a baby.
I saw a little of this on Twitter.
Oh, so good, dude. The game was great. So it's an RPG where you build up your crew of bandmates, and then you have cards, and each band member is a different archetype. So the drummer is the tank, and the singer is the support, and the guitarist is like the rage berserker, stuff like that. And you get these cards, and you go along a path, and you fight increasingly stronger mobs. But the strategy of picking the cards and equipping your characters was just so good, and the art style was very Darkest Dungeon-y, very comic book based. It looked like very strong cell shading style. The humor was very Brutal Legends inspired, but the gameplay is very Slay the Spire and very Slay the Inspired. I guess you could say this game struck a chord with me.
I'm going to die.
So Power Chord was another really good one. Another one in the same section. So there was no Indie Megacade this year, but there was like a Kickstarter booth with like all these games that were like crowdfunded. And then another one in that same area was a game called Cyberknights Flashpoint. Not the best name, but it gave me an idea. So it is a isometric art strategy RPG, but instead of grid based, it's AP based. So you've got free roam, but you can move wherever. It's a cyberpunk heist RPG.
It's kind of XCOM-y.
It's very XCOM-y, but the heist aspect makes it unique. So you'll get this like mission, right? And then based on your character builds, you pick the sets. Like you'll pick the path you go, and then you'll play through that path. So if you're going to be stealth, you're going to want to pick like the sewer path, and instead of the front door path. And then before the mission starts, you'll do like all this like discussion based, like dialogue based stuff, choosing your options.
Did you play XCOM Chimera Squad?
I did.
Okay. Is it anything like how in Chimera Squad where you'd have to like kind of plan out the entry points for every person into like you've got basically the
more or less
pre-mission?
Yeah. That's very yeah. So the pre-mission thing where you get to pick your parts, and then the characters you choose like and your choices you make, you know, typical RPG fashion. If your character dies, then suddenly their plot point is now gone. But I had a lot of fun with the demo, which was just the first was a stage. I can't speak to if it's the first stage, but the gameplay was really cool. I'm always a fan of RPGs, and the cyberpunk aesthetic never hurts. And they called it basically Cyberpunk Ocean's 11, which you know you got me there. You know exactly what buttons to press. And they had the best way to get you into a booth, which was showing a picture of a cyberpunk dog. And they're like, you can pet the dog. And I'm like, you got me. You know me. I'm in. The other two games were both very similar. Both could be described as 2D Dark Souls. Pixel art inspired. You know the type, like, think Hyperlight Drifter aesthetic, but 2D Dark Souls-y combat. The first one is a Humble Games joint called Moonscar. This game okay, so Humble Games, they're like, all right, you have 30 minutes, you have these 3 games, you can swap however you want, you know, and then the next appointment comes. I'm like, cool, I'll start on Moonscar. They tap me on the shoulder like, all right, your time's up, the next person. They're like, but I'm still playing Moonscar, hold on. The game was real good. Go check out a trailer or something for it. Like, aesthetically, it's very appealing, but the controls, like these games, like it's part Metroidvania, I guess, like vaguely, because you know it reminded me more of Ori than a traditional Metroidvania, but the combat was so satisfying. Like some games just feel good to play, and right off the bat, like I just got the best vibes from this game, and I just got lost in it. So Moonscar amazing. And the final one I have is No Place for Bravery. Same kind of deal, but more story-based RPG with I wish every time I try and pull something up online, it's all from like a year ago. I don't know when they're gonna put up stuff from PAX, but the game was very kind of Zelda-y based, more Hyper Light Drifter, a lot of puzzles involved, but the combat was very visceral and felt good. And you'll die a lot, but it's one of those kinds where you're like, oh, I died, but only because I didn't fucking see this archer dude over here who just wrecked my shit. Next time I won't be so bad. And then I was. And proud moment for me, I beat this one puzzle in the first try, and the guy looked at me and was like, no one's ever done that this whole show. And I'm like, that's because you got your boy Finn here. And also shout out to him, because when I gave him our sake, he got visibly like emotional and was like, this is the best way to end the show. I love this. Because the team's from Brazil. And it's 5 people from Brazil, and he was just so, and also his name was Matt, Mateus.
That's the shit I love about PAX is meeting these little indie teams that have done everything to get to that 6-foot section.
Right. And you know what? It's just also, I don't know if you guys remember friend of the show, Odell Harmon.
Yeah.
Who works for Stride now. He was representing the game, so I got to see him when I went in for the meet. But yeah, it's those, if I had to pick my top 5, I'll stop rambling, but those would be my top 5 games of and our boy Scott, Professor RPG from RPG University in chat, going, oh wow, no Demio, because that was the other game that we played significantly on, but I'm not counting it because it technically already exists. It's out on VR. They were pimping out their PC port, but we actually spent an hour and a half playing that demo together. Because normally, PAX, there's so much to do. You don't want to spend an hour and a half at a booth. But like I said, there was a lot less stuff to do here. So we sat down and played an hour and a half of this demo, and it was amazing. It's basically D&D inspired, like art strategy RPG, but it's cross-play between VR and PC. We had a fucking blast, dude. That game definitely makes the cut. They got a sake as well. I just didn't want to put it in my top 5 because I like to focus more on the new stuff. The new, you know how it is. Also, shout out to the Demio team, because when I left my Wild Bill's mug at the booth, they held on to it for me. Those are some good peeps. That's all I got. That's PAX East in a nutshell.
I really want to make it to another PAX, and I will admit that I think a lot of us are still very nervous about COVID to going back, and it definitely doesn't help that like a bunch of people got COVID at GDC, a bunch of people got COVID at PAX,
But you know what? I can attest that it was not from lack of security at PAX.
Well, Reb made an excellent point when talking about GDC, which seems like it was true for PAX as well, that the event itself was very tightly run, that they were requiring proof of vaccination, that they were requiring people maintain, masking, and that social distancing was enforced as well as it can be, that the event is probably not the problem. It's the satellite stuff. It's all of the parties and the meetups. And part of the problem is that's a lot of what I want out of PAX too. Like half of it is getting to see these cool indies and see these people who have put everything into getting to that spot to show their game off. But it's a huge opportunity to see all of our friends in the media and content creation, who, in development and PR, who we mostly just interact with through the web. And, that's the shit that's dangerous. So,
I mean, and it's also just, I'm just wondering when, like, some of these bigger companies that you said, didn't come back will actually consider it acceptable to go to events again.
I honestly think it'll be PAX West. The vibe I got was this show was just because again, when you think about all the big companies that didn't show up, there was Japan, and Japan just had a huge surge.
Yeah.
So I think that plays into it. I expect PAX to be back up and running by PAX West, and if not, the absolute least would be PAX Unplugged.
Yeah.
I think PAX will come back. Like, I think this was a very strong proof of concept for them that the demand is there.
I think a lot of people were waiting to see how a relatively large PAX would go before they committed to another one.
Yeah, because
Right.
like GDC is a different thing because that's an industry event. But this is kind of like the first like bigger gaming
Where the
event
public
that's
could
happened
get
since
in.
then. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we'll just have to see. I
mean, everyone's
PAX.
mileage will vary, but I think with his care, it makes me feel better when the event takes it seriously.
Yeah.
And
yeah, for sure.
you know what? Even at the satellite events, like Scott and I were still masked up. And I think that's why Scott and I didn't get COVID. And but I mean, even if we were, because I know lots of people that were masked up and still got it. And it's a crapshoot. It's Russian roulette.
And
but-
that's so important is like we can talk about how this is still kind of risky and you know that I think I've seen a couple of people when confronted with the idea that this is risky immediately jump to the idea that acknowledging that is victim blaming in some way, right?
It's
And that's
not.
absolutely not the case because it's not your fault if you go to something like this and you take precautions and you get COVID, right? Like we've been doing this for 2 fucking years, you know? Like people do eventually have to venture out there to some degree. I don't like the you can't live in fear bullshit, but like eventually we've done what we can and it's time to start cautiously venturing out. But like
And there's also probably a lot of people that have to for work or
Yeah,
like
that's-
and like you know people that are more into like actually making money from content creation than we are, like they like it's and I mean and probably also like the networking element of it too.
Yeah.
Like so it's not they can't just like dip
that's
into
probably
the event
huge for a
to
lot
get-
of people's mental health just to see
Yeah.
friends again, you know? I mean,
so like yeah.
so
they-
no blaming at all for I think it was risky, but that's not me finger wagging at anybody who went. You know, that's not me finger wagging at anybody who caught COVID. That's, you know,
And it happened a lot where people were like, "Hey, where's the rest of the crew?" And I'd just be like, "I was the only one that felt comfortable coming this time. The
Yeah.
rest will try and make it in a future show." You know, and everyone, no one was like, "Oh, I can't believe that they are still so scared." Everyone was like, every single person was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." Like no one faults anyone for not wanting to go
Yeah.
because of personal safety reasons.
I think ultimately we all understand that out of each other at this point. I
At
think
least
anybody,
the people we run with, you know,
right?
and
anybody
also
who's-
like I mean like Derek and I both got very sick at the last PAX.
yeah.
like,
how many people did we infect with the flu at PAX East
God.
2020? Like
Um,
right when COVID was breaking out in
Yeah.
Boston, I probably single-handedly caused a lot of terror in Boston in March of 2020. Like, you know, so but I think
I still feel like you guys got COVID. I know the testing. and
no,
all that, but
I got tested,
they,
man.
they never
I
they
just have a feeling.
they never tested me for it, and I was still feeling stuff months after the fact. I think I might have actually
No,
gotten it.
again, here's the thing. Martha had the flu before I came out. I got it from her because she was sick and had been sick for days
Derek was
when I
patient
got on
zero.
that plane. I was. And when I got back, even when I was done with the flu, I had pneumonia. Like the strain of the flu that I had and that I gave to everybody was a strain that probably gave a lot of people pneumonia too. So Bustin, you had pneumonia. Like
I was that was some of the sickest I've ever
gave
been in my
you
life.
viral pneumonia, and I'm so sorry. But yeah, we'll be back at PAX at some point. It's but you know, I think we're all those of us who are in good faith in this kind of intersection of like media, PR, content creator types, hobbyists. We all get it. None of us are really pointing fingers at each other about, you know, being too cautious or too risky because we all get it. You know, we're all human beings. So I'm trying to think. I don't have anything else to go over about because none of us fucking went. It was just you. Fam.
yeah, it's not like we have a really great
Yeah.
No, I mean
Lots
that's
of
why I just
like-
wanted to talk about the 5
Game
games
of
I
the
played.
show was Azure Lane for PS4.
Game of I will say there the tabletop area was really dope. Scott brought me to play this one game called Dice Throne.
Oh yeah.
And that was a fucking blast. And I will shout out that I kicked his ass hardcore on my first ever playthrough by pulling out an ultimate to take out the rest of his life while he was like thinking he was going to win, but then he didn't because I'm a boss. And that's all I got to say about that. But no, it's what I love about PAX is that it's more than just video games. There's so much tabletop and card games if you want to like branch out beyond the main area. And then yeah, take this as a great organization. Look into supporting them. I will always pimp them out.
Yes. So I want to move on to our main actual like predetermined topic for the night, which is PlayStation's been making some moves in regards to trying to spread and keep their games alive. They have been hiring, if I remember correctly, they either just hired or were hiring for a new lead for their PC gaming division.
That is
Somebody to lead up the
a
strategy.
job listing that
It's a
has
job
not
listing,
been
so
filled yet.
They're hiring for somebody to basically be like the lead for their PC release strategy.
PC strategy, yeah.
Yeah.
Their PC releases have done really well, like God of War.
All of them have done really well.
It's
Yeah.
God of
like,
War,
they've
it's
been
Days
good.
Gone, and it's
Largely,
Horizon.
they've been good ports, and people like the PC community has really like embraced them. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Horizon I know needed to be cleaned up, but it sounds like they put in the work to get that.
Yeah, well, it was
port
the
into
first
place.
One of their
port.
earlier.
That was
attempts too,
that was
right?
like the first big one.
Yeah.
But I played through the game on PC, and a couple months ago, and it was in really good shape.
They
by
were
that
still
point.
putting out like major patches for it. I think as recently as like just before Christmas or something. There was a
Yeah.
big update.
Like,
And they
just
were supported
before-
with excellent sales. So
Yeah, I think it was like just before Forbidden West came out, Nixies basically did another pass on that PC port.
yeah.
And just released a patch out of nowhere. We didn't know it was coming, but yeah, no, the one port that needed the most cleaning up, they put in the work to get into a good place.
Yeah. So we've got that. And at the same time, we have word that Sony is putting together a preservation team of sorts it's relatively unclear what the specific focus is going to be, but the idea that Sony is going to have a preservation focused team within their PlayStation division is very interesting to me.
I think sorry, Doug, you said that about the focus. I think what I read was because that's like really vague, but I think what I
Right.
read either from the person who was tweeting about it or someone else, it sounds like it's not like what people want out of games preservation. Like all your favorite games are going to be available on PS5. It's like
Yeah.
they're very early in the process. It's about like making sure the code is backed up. All the different builds and releases of the game from its development, all the assets, things like that. So it's kind of that. It's basically filing everything so that in the future, if they want to pull from it for like a remaster or a sequel, anything like that, it's basically putting everything on the shelves so that if someone needs it, they can pull from it. It doesn't mean they're actively re-releasing all these games, but it's a good first step because most companies aren't even making this effort to begin with.
Yeah,
Well, I
and
think-
also, I mean, a handful of new PlayStation classics have started appearing on the PlayStation
Really?
back end. They're not available yet, but people that have done some of the tracking on like back end PSN stuff have noticed that there's a handful that are starting to come out, which we know there's the new service coming. So, I mean, having this team means that some of those things are going to be on the table. It doesn't mean that they're actively working on it, but it means that some of those things are on the table. We know they're doing their new service, which is going to have some more support, and so I'm just happy to hear that they're going to be working on this for long term. I expect that it's the very early days in a very long term project, but happy to see that they're putting in the effort to get some people on. And I know there's some people that are really passionate about PlayStation preservation in particular. So
CJ's like chomping at the bit.
Bro, listen, I just want to play Sly Cooper, and I don't want to pull out my fucking PS3 for it. Sony, do what you got to do.
I've never played any of the
Bro,
Sly Cooper games.
listen,
I'd
look,
like
look, Sucker Punch doesn't want to make fun games anymore. Fine, release their old ones, please. For the love of God, please, just release fucking Sly Cooper again, Sony.
I'd love to play stuff like Sly Cooper and not have to just emulate it and pirate it, right? Like, I'd love to support it.
Do it anyway. Teach them a lesson, because my computer can't run the PS3 emulator. do it for me.
Were they PS3 or PS2 games?
There was a great HD remaster on PS3.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
Sly 4 was a PS3 game?
Sly 4 was a PS3 and Vita game. Early Vita game.
That's
it was
right.
on
I
Vita as well.
remember that.
Yes.
It was like cross buy, right?
So
Yeah.
Like the Sony, the thing with Sony and Nintendo is like Microsoft's doing all this great stuff with backwards compatibility and everything. But here's the thing. They haven't been in the game long enough to have to cultivate as iconic or as big as a library. If you notice, most of the big Xbox backwards compatible games, mostly third-party stuff. Like today, I bought Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. Is that what you would consider an Xbox classic? No.
Yeah.
Cameo doesn't hit quite the same.
And like most of their
Stubbs
big
the
stuff,
zombie, isn't it? Like,
Yo,
What is
did
it?
Stubbs get like a legit remaster
Yeah,
on like every platform a year ago or
Yeah.
something like that?
Like the only good game, like the greatest legacy title from the Xbox is Conquer Live and Reloaded, and that's backwards compatible. So it's like if Nintendo, like, listen, Nintendo's kind of fumbling the bag a bit with their preservation.
that's the
as we
story
talked
of Nintendo, to be fair.
So, it's like, hey, pay $60 a year for like busted ass N64 games, and Sega Genesis games for whatever reason.
I'm just amazed that they keep managing to put out so many games I've never fucking heard of for their like
because they ran out. They fucking ran out. They're like, yeah, it's like, they're keeping Super Mario 64 away in some cage, and they're like, here you go, have fucking Bubsy on your fucking like Switch. But
You wanna play
Here's
Kirby
Bubsy.
64?
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. You want to play Mega Man 2? Go fuck yourself. Like,
so if Sony, like, my thing is, I don't get why companies just aren't like, what's everyone else doing? Let's react to that. I don't get it. I don't get why it's not like a thing like that. Because if Sony's seeing the way Microsoft's doing backwards compatibility, and they don't realize, okay, Microsoft's doing this great thing, everyone loves it. No one uses it, but everyone loves it, right? It's like the percentage of people who use backwards compatibility stuff is like
They play the games for like 5 minutes.
exactly like me. But I do have new games too. So if Sony should be like, our back catalog is like arguably one of the strongest of any of the big three, because they not only have their first party stuff, they have a bunch of third party things too that were only released on that. You know what I'm saying? Like countless RPGs, countless survival horror games, all this stuff. I don't get why Sony isn't jumping at like the chance to just like drop it all somehow. Like if you guys, the PS3 had like almost virtually every single PS1 and PS2 game ever made on that service. They have fucking Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith on fucking PS2. Like you buy it on the PS3 store for some reason. Like they had all this shit. I don't know why they're not like this wasn't done earlier, like a sort of like preservation team at like the beginning of the PS4 life cycle.
I think like the thing about Sony is they're slow on stuff like this. But I think seeing that they're making a preservation team, that they have this, service coming up that they want you to pay extra money every month for to have access to classic games, like I think they're going to slowly get there. I do not have high hopes for the early days selection.
no, it's gonna be
It's gonna be sparse.
It's gonna be fucking what? They're gonna find some way to shoehorn the original Final Fantasy VII in there somehow. They're gonna find some way to shoehorn like one of the original Resident Evil games.
But like, good, do that. That'd be great.
I guess, but it's like, but you get what I'm saying. It's gonna be stuff that's already been released in better ways. They're not gonna drop Pac-Man World.
Can I play Tomba?
They should drop Tomba. They should drop Tomba. They should drop fucking. Remember the okay? Because I pulled up the list. You guys
Can I
remember?
play Einhander? You know
Do you
what I
guys
mean?
remember
Like,
a little device called the PlayStation Classic?
yeah.
Oh, guys, look at this list of games. I don't know if you guys remember. Like it was
It's not good.
it's
insane.
amazing. So Battle Arena Toshinden, Cool Borders 2, Destruction Derby, Final Fantasy VII, the original GTA, Intelligence Cube, Jumping Flash, Metal Gear Solid, Mr. Driller, Oddworld Age Odyssey,
What the hell
Rayman.
is Mr. Driller?
Oh, it's a great Namco
Okay,
arcade.
Mr. Driller was legit good. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
Mr. Driller was- but it's like, bro, fucking Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. What the fuck? Who is that for? Who is that for?
The original Rainbow Six.
The original Rainbow Six. Who like
On PlayStation, which that was not a good port of that game either.
The first Persona game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's such a bizarre thing that like they fumble. That's my again, Justin. Like I worry that it's going to be somehow worse than that lineup.
I think the sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say my like barometer for whether or not, like, if they're gonna have PS2 games, right, preserved, if they're gonna have PS2 games on this service, my barometer for have they done their job right is Grandia 3. And the reason for that is Grandia 3 is like kind of noteworthy. Not really. Like, it's an existing JRPG series and a semi-noteworthy title, but nobody's like chomping at the bit for it. Most anybody remembers about that game is the anime ass song opening, and that the mom is like weirdly hot in a way that shouldn't be acceptable.
What's this game called?
Grandia 3, man. But like, if Grandia 3 is there, then they have hit everything important and they're moving on to like the B and C list.
No, man, what is this? I have to play this game.
The issue, also the other issue that I think doesn't get talked about a lot is there are severe licensing issues for a lot of older games. That's actually why Microsoft has said they're now no longer adding stuff to the backwards compatibility catalog, and then a lot of stuff is also disc only. Like, you can play it if you have the disc, but like
Mortal Kombat 9 is disc only.
Because like the way it works on Xbox is you're not playing it from the disc. You put in the disc to verify you own it, and then you download it, but they can't put it up for sale separately.
Yeah.
Like, Microsoft's basically had to put an end to that program because of licensing issues. And especially, I think, for PS1 era stuff, that might be a bigger deal, because a big deal in, PS1 era was we can put real music on because it's on a CD.
Well, in Japanese copyright law is so
But
weird.
aren't most of those, like, all those PS1 classics that I own on like my Vita and PS3, aren't those still up on the store, or have those been slowly pulled?
I'm not sure of the status.
I don't understand
right
how
now.
the licensing is different if they like still have them up on one platform, but
I think you literally have to resubmit it to the ESRB because
okay.
it's not rated for PS4 or PS5 or something like that. I think it's something dumb like that. There are a lot of really weird stuff that doesn't
There was an article I read like a while ago, like that it basically broke down the process of like re-releasing games as simple as like a simple like port, like again, like dragging the ROM into like the PS store. And yeah, it's a pain to do, because again, like you said, you got to re-rate it.
It's all legal shit.
Yeah, exactly. Now here's my counterpoint. I don't care.
Fair. That is totally fair.
They have enough money. They could do it. The headache should be worth it. My thing is, even if no one buys these games, the goodwill should pay. It should be payment enough for Sony. You get what I'm saying? Like, controlling that conversation. The day that they decide, all right, hundreds of PS1 and PS2 games are on the store now. No one's going to talk about whatever fucking backwards compatible.
Or at least do it with all the games that they control and
yes.
say, look, we have the emulation capability at this point. So if you want fucking whatever,
Sly Cooper, drop the fucking game.
Put Sly Cooper up there. Put all these games up there, and then you say, look, if you want fucking Deception 2 on our service, then you go talk to Tecmo. Right? Because we're cool with it if they're cool with it. Put it on. It's so weird that that Sony and Nintendo have been the blockade in so many ways for making this easier. Like, if Nintendo made it easier before now, right, to have NES emulation on console with the Switch, right? We wouldn't have needed to wait for a Mega Man collections, right? And get out there with messaging and say, look, we'll put Castlevania up there, right? We'll put Castlevania 2 up there, but Konami's got to do it, right? Like, pass that buck. you will earn a lot of goodwill. I feel
like if Microsoft was willing to put in the work to license like some weird third party and like actual like adaptations and licensed property, like the fucking Peter Jackson King Kong game is backwards compatible. A bunch of Star Wars games are backwards compatible. A fucking SpongeBob game was like made free for Xbox on Xbox Live Games with Gold. It's a 360 game. My thing is, if they were willing to put in the work, that fucking headache-inducing work of like licensing these things out, I think you're right. Sony could do it with at least their internal games that aren't out yet, like or haven't been re-released, like Jack and Daxter, stuff like that. That's already been. You can buy it right now on PS4, PS5. Like I own them, but like everything else, you would think that they can just fill in those gaps themselves. I don't know why it's taking this long.
I don't know, but having a preservation team is good, right? I mean, Jeff, like you said, it's not like games are going to start getting ported tomorrow. Right? But if they're going to actually start filing these games away, maintaining source code, keeping these things available, working on emulation, then like this is a process that will have a slow start, but will pay off and I think that's the problem is businesses don't like long-term. It's all short-term gains. So something like games preservation is inherently kind of backwards to most companies who do not like to think about the long term.
Who knows how long people have been fighting internally to try to get this formed? Because if they got it formed, that means that they are going to be in for a long haul on it. But it probably took a lot of people, a lot of convincing for higher ups to actually expand into creating this team.
Yeah.
I think the other thing people don't realize is like, yes, all these companies, especially Sony and Nintendo, could do a better job and make more effort into like making them available. But the mistakes of yesterday are not easily fixed. Like Microsoft is a software company first. Like, they've been around with Windows for so long. But the foresight into the architecture in each Xbox and the evolution between all of them and kind of the planning that allowed them to kind of support each previous one with the next one, whereas I think Sony kind of just each console, each game, they didn't put any thought into like the bigger picture, and now it's like, oh fuck, how do we have all these pieces that don't fit? Like
there were a lot of people at the time though that looked at the cell processor and were like, this is gonna fuck you.
This is a bad idea, and it was a bad idea.
It sure was.
Again, that just I've said it a bunch, but they're still getting screwed over by bad decisions that they made in the PS3 era.
Well, why do you think it took so long to change your username? Like, because what a nightmare.
Maybe that's a big part of where the preservation team comes in too, right? Is it's not just compiling games, getting emulation ready, but it's about having people who can say, like, these decisions would be bad, in your infrastructure, in your system design, would be bad for you long term. It's not just backwards compatibility, it's forwards compatibility, right? Like the number one fear every Nintendo fan has is that there won't be a Switch 2, right? Like that they will just make some new bullshit up and then we're going to be back at square one. And eventually you have to start thinking about how, when you were designing something, going, how do I make sure this doesn't get left in the past? What I'm making now. And like you said, Jeff, some of these mistakes that were made a decade plus, ago, it's going to be really hard to fix some of those mistakes if they can even be fixed. Some games may get lost to time, right? There's a couple notoriously difficult to run PS3 games that may never be able to get decompiled and,
I just want Metal Gear Solid 4, man.
I mean, I've actually been looking into some PS3 emulation stuff lately. DF actually did a video on MGS4 emulated, and that's like they played it on like a 12900K 3090 rig, and it still has frame drops in like some places. Like I've been reading about it, and like some of the stuff, just the way the cell processor is architected, like the only way to get some stuff to run is actually to deactivate certain things. Like a big one, and this is very technical, so forgive me, but like there was an AA method that Sony had and they wanted people to use called MLAA. Mm-hmm. And it takes 5 milliseconds of render time on every single core which the way the cell was architected is not a big deal. However, on a modern CPU with also because you have to have several orders of magnitude more processing power for accurate emulation, it literally just is like the only way to get stuff to run is to just turn that off and then it'll work. But like the PS3 is one of just the most ridiculously designed pieces of consumer like electronics ever made.
Why would they fucking release that? But yeah, so, you know, and this is kind of where I roped the PC strategy team into this, because I do genuinely think, I've always been a big believer that if you want to talk preservation, you kind of do have to talk PC, right? Because games that get released on PC, there's 20 plus, there's 30-year-old games almost that I can run on this computer right here. You know, I might need a couple little fixes to get some older, like 90s and earlier, you know, stuff to run. But for the most part, it's not the end of the world to get old PC games up and running.
And also, like, a lot of times, if it seems like they're like the PC ports have been good, which bodes well for them lasting for a while. But
Well, that's
also,
the thing.
if they stop working, fans will probably fix it for you, so they don't have to down the line, you know, do some of these updates
and
to get
making
it running.
a decent PC port. The process of doing so kind of creates a version that is often very easy to reverse engineer if you ever want to port it again in the future, right?
I mean, so many of like the recent remasters and re-releases on consoles are basically, a lot of them are just PC ports.
Yeah, they're basically taking the PC
every-
version and prettying them up and putting them on, you know, the X64 based hardware that the PlayStation and Xbox run on. Like, oh, Finn, that's fair. If you gotta go, I love you, buddy.
I do. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you for regaling us with stories of PAX.
Yes, and braving the savage Northeast for us.
I love you all.
You were a king. Got some sleep.
Now allow me to rank my favorite SDG members canonically from best to worst.
I'm listening. Go.
Does it end with Brittany?
She's the alpha and the
Jesus.
omega.
The
All right,
top
love
and
y'all.
the bottom.
Well,
Later, Finn.
I think the word is switch. All right, bye guys.
Later, bud. But yeah, I mean, it's always what happens with these PC ports is they end up being able to be easily reverse engineered, so that games don't have to be completely fucking remade from scratch in the future. So,
Well, and I think also, like, architecturally, both Sony and Microsoft are now kind of in a place between the last couple generations where that becomes much simpler to begin with.
because last generation and this generation is basically just using PC hardware. It's x64 based architecture. It's the same shit.
I mean, how many times are the games running on a PC at like a demo event or something like that?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
You know,
and even Switch. I mean, okay, Switch is running on different hardware, but it's ARM, and ARM hardware is often relatively easy to work with in terms of porting. So it's not been super hard to get games, you know, PC
from
games
my
ready
understanding,
for Switch.
From my understanding with Switch porting, it's more of lack of power on offer versus the actual architectural
because
differences.
it's gotta be held back a bit in order for it to keep any battery life at all in handheld format. And you know, I mean, that's just that's why every Nintendo rumor monger has been obsessed with the idea of Switch Pro or Switch 2 having DLSS, which would genuinely be huge for a handheld, but you know, I mean, it's rumor mill shit. But yeah, so I think it's kind of interesting though to see Sony approaching both avenues really at the same time, and I'm hoping maybe that's a recognition that, like, hey, if we put some of these games on PC, because also come PS6 or whatever, like if people can play God of War and God of War Ragnarok on PC and they can't on PS6,
I mean, that's probably not going to happen. I don't see that
right,
happening.
But that gives you all the more reason to continue being forward compatible because you don't want to be the worst place to play your own games.
Well, and I also think that now that teams like Bluepoint and Nixies are a part of PlayStation, they have a lot of experience porting games and doing really great tech work, and I think that can be very, very important
I think
in
that
this.
means a lot because there's a lot of Japanese companies that really have never dipped their toes into PC development and have never considered PC a serious platform. And
so one thing that's
Sony's.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just gonna say real quick. Sony's done a great job with that. Just overall, like looking at what are our weaknesses and making efforts to bring in, organizations or groups that can help them there. It's the same thing what they did with Bungie, right? Like, there's probably multiple reasons for that deal, but one of the big ones was like they know multiplayer, they know live service games. We don't, especially in recent history, have a lot of experience in that avenue. So like, fuck it, let's bring in the people who do. And that's what they did with these PC, these studios that have a lot of experience with remasters and PCs as well, is they're just building that stable of knowledge, and hopefully they have a good system kind of organizationally where all that information can get across to all the teams and really benefit everyone.
And one thing, just talking preservation and like future compatibility and stuff, they finally released the VRR update for PS5, which if you don't know, VRR stands for variable refresh rate. I do not even have a TV that can support it yet, unfortunately, but it allows for games to still seem very smooth when their frame rates wavering. And Insomniac actually made all of their PS5 releases, if you have it set up properly, run completely uncapped. So like you can run the fidelity modes, which were capped at 30 FPS previously, of Spider-Man Remastered, Miles Morales, and Ratchet and Clank, at now like 50 to 60 FPS. And it'll still seem very smooth, and you get stuff, and that stuff's awesome for future compatibility because it means they don't have to go back and make changes to these games. They'll actually will be enhancements to, resolution and frame rate and stuff kind of automatically done, which that's really cool.
I love the idea of having like the willingness on consoles to give people a couple of different like profiles and options for performance versus resolution, because you're building that scalability into the games now, and that's now only good for future.
We saw so many games on PS5 that, like, from PS4 games that had like an uncapped frame rate or dynamic resolution, and there was no patch needed. It's like
they just ran at 4K 60 on PS5.
Like Sekiro was a game that I had issues with because of performance, and playing it on PS5 is super smooth. So now, like, with the way they implemented the options, like you can run it at, like on PS6, you'll be able to run it at full 4K, 60 FPS, maybe even higher, without them having to do anything, which I think is really great. And probably by then, that the type of TVs necessary, people will actually have more of them. I wish I had one, but unfortunately I do not. I wish I could test it.
You know what's interesting is I saw, and I didn't understand this at first, but a couple of PlayStation first-party games have been getting 40 FPS modes.
It's only been Insomniac that's done this.
Yeah. But
it's a cool idea.
At first I was like, well, that's a random fucking number, isn't it? But I thought about it.
It's only for 120 hertz displays.
If you have a 120 hertz display, right, so that you can do that, and you've got the overhead to bump your quality mode from 30 to 40 FPS anyway, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, and actually, like, math-wise, with, like, when you get into the milliseconds, it's actually, even though number-wise it doesn't seem like it, it's actually the exact midpoint between 30 and 60 FPS. So, like, you get a pretty decent benefit. But this, they actually went a step further now, where instead of just going to 40, it'll actually go up to between 50 and 60 in even these fidelity modes, which is really cool. So, although then there's stuff like Ghostwire, which literally has 6 different graphics modes.
That's a bit much.
And it's even for somebody like me who is very knowledgeable about technical stuff and likes this stuff, it was just too much. Part of the reasons I like consoles is it's still kind of like developers curated experience. And it was just, and also most of them don't work very well. Like, unless maybe now with the VRR update, they'd be great. Feels like it was made for a VRR display more than anything else. But like, yeah, don't do that.
Give me a quality mode, a performance mode, like a quality mode that aims to hit 4K and will fluctuate in frame rate, or hit like a stable
be kept
30.
like at 30.
Give an option
Right.
for a cap. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But give me like a 30 FPS mode that goes for the highest resolution possible. Give me a 60 FPS mode with resolution scaling to keep that target. Right? Give me those two. That's all we fucking need. Maybe if you want to do the Insomniac thing and give me like a ray tracing performance option.
Oh,
sure.
With the VRR update, that runs like, now it runs at like 90 to 100 FPS with ray tracing on.
Yeah.
Like in their games. That's awesome.
The fucking rules, dude. It just means a lot. I'm so glad that everybody understands that we could do better than 30 FPS this whole time. But yeah, like, I just think it's important that Sony is looking at this shit. I wish Nintendo would get on board. I know they're likely never going to because it's Nintendo, but
I feel like one day they will just accidentally stumble their way into like the right.
Sure. Well,
direction.
eventually these gaming companies will be run by people who have played video games before, right? Like, because that's kind of the secret is most of these companies are run by people who don't fuck with video games.
Really old dudes.
It's just old. I mean, even Reggie used to famously like kind of pride himself on not actually playing a lot of video games. And it's like, I get it. You're CEO, right? Or a general manager. You don't have time to play 4 hours of games a day, but like you should be invested in the art form.
Off topic, but man, I looked at like Shuhei Yoshida's trophy list one time. And,
Oh my
like,
God.
that guy is crazy.
That's a beast.
Shuhei Yoshida and Mark Cerny are hardcore. Like I've looked at their trophy lists and like Cerny tweets like 3 times a year and it's all about like platinum, and it's always just like, oh, platinum's like Demon Souls or something like that.
Well, with Cerny, it kind of makes sense given his origins and working with like Sega in the 90s and shit. So, but yeah, like, and
Kojima just watches a bunch of movies.
Yeah. You know what? The man cares about an art form. Right? He clearly doesn't like video games and wishes he was just making movies, but he's bringing that passion for art and creation
Like
to
being high
video
school
games.
journalism.
Yeah. And that means
Imagine his new studio just has like 2 rooms and one is Mads Mikkelsen's office.
Yeah.
And the other is like the entire development team.
But like that means something. You've got to have artists involved in this. And even if you don't have artists, you have to have people who have a passion for the art. Kevin Feige famously did not give much of a shit about Marvel. He was just a movie producer who cared about movies. And he made the most fucking successful like series of movies ever producing, not because he started out as a big Marvel nerd, but just because he understood that like this is a thing, this is how we're going to incite people's passions. And I wish that more of these suits at these gaming companies at least had that level of understanding or passion for the art form beyond PR speak. And eventually we'll get there. But right now, most of these 50, 60, 70-year-old people just have not interacted with video games in a meaningful way.
Thankfully, though, a lot of studio heads,
yes,
especially at the first parties. Like,
look at like Nintendo famously.
Yeah.
Having people like Mark Cerny move up within PlayStation is excellent for them.
Or Herman Hulse, like
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's excellent to see stuff like this preservation team. I worry that we won't see a real sea change until non-gamers become old enough to retire. Right? Like we have to take over. But
are you telling
Derek, are you saying gamers need to rise up?
Gamers do need to rise up. But what gamers need to do is they need to button one more button on their fucking polos, and they need to trade their khakis for some better slacks, and they need to get their asses promoted. Right? You got to be at least gamer supervisor and up so we can change this shit. It's not enough to just be a floor level gamer anymore.
I'm totally
Right.
going to take this clip out of context.
The
and
era
throw it somewhere.
of khaki cargo shorts and green Legend of Zelda t-shirts is
Oh
over.
my god, bro, yes. Oh my god. Stop
I thought
shopping
it
at
was
the
all
fucking graphic tee
flannel
section at
plaid
Target.
now.
Oh my god, that's even worse. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Oh my god, you're right. Oh, the fucking Hot Topic core.
Suko and indie game shirt, man. Let's go.
Slap a short sleeve button up over the graphic tee. You've immediately leveled up. Come on, man.
We explained it in terms. Hey guys, a shower is a great XP.
I think
is
the right person to lead this movement is Gamer Morbius, Justin.
He
He's
is,
the only
he is.
one.
Only one.
Oh, folks, we are past our time here. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. This is a good night. This is a fun night. We needed this. Several faces who haven't been able to be on in a little while were here. Justin and CJ, y'all haven't been on in a few weeks, and Finn we haven't had on in forever. So that was excellent to have him for while we could. We have a couple of things to throw out in the chat as per usual. We have a Discord. It's pretty cool. It's full of good people. It's full of excellent community managers. RAR told me to talk about something. I think we're changing up the way that we do a lot of notifications on the Discord. I've had bourbon, so unfortunately I'm not in a good shape to perform the announcement. But if you're part of the Discord, RAR will post an excellent announcement as to the changes we're making, so that you can get into reaction based roles that get you.
RAR has been hard in the bot labs. He makes bots for fun.
Yeah, RAR is going to be the
been-
reason that we get killed by robots eventually, but
Yeah, eventually. We
Yeah.
got time. Right now he's just making the Discord better.
honestly, we deserve it.
And so, yeah. So he's been streamlining how we're handling like pronouns as well as notifications and stuff. So it's going to be a much more simple process. So it should be fun.
Yeah.
We really appreciate all
Join
the
the
work
Discord.
that he
It's
puts in.
an excellent, very diverse, very inclusive community. People of all different gender identities and sexualities, people of all different races. It is a very welcoming to everybody but right-wing shitheads community. We also have this wonderful merch store. Everything on our merch store, all proceeds go directly to charities. I think it's Take This, the Trevor Project, and Black Girls Code are the three various charities that various products go to. So drape yourselves in our fineries and support
shirt's
good
so
causes
comfy.
while you do it. I love this fucking shirt. I wear it out in public sometimes. People ask me what it is, and I don't have the heart to tell them it's my podcast because that's an asshole thing to do. But you listener, don't work on this podcast. So if you wear an SDGC shirt in public and someone asks you what it is, you don't have to be like, oh, this is mine. I work on this. This is a billboard. You are a faithful listener. And then, of course, last but also I guess least technically at the moment is the Patreon. You'll know we don't moneygate any content. We are not spending a lot right now, but we need a few equipment upgrades that we're working on that draws from our Patreon bank. And, this will also help us to do big events as we start going back to them. It helps pay for us to get together things like, when we do big charity drives and so on and so forth. But far, far less important, join the community and support good charities. That's the important shit right now. We don't need your money so bad right now. I don't know that I have any other show notes. Y'all, anything to say?
No, you said it all.
Cool. I have replaced John. That's all I've got, everybody. Kindness costs nothing. Take care.